there. It's idiotic. It just shows the hate that you put out for people that put love. There's so much love in the art that I put out.
With all due respect,
so many,
Ye, what are you talking about? Why did Ye stand up like a sniveling little coward and walk away before I could ask him difficult questions?
For the third time, Piers, I don't know if you have a hearing problem, but I'm not going to answer questions on another man's behalf. But
really?
Thank you for
Even though you set up the interview with him?
You know, all the threats, the threat of death, the non-threats on money and cutting off the finances, and all that happened. That we went through this war to like really fight for our freedom as artists.
Who knew all it would take to end Piers Morgan's career for good was one interview with Ye and his friend Sneako. I definitely didn't see this on the 2025 bingo cards, I'll tell you that much. For those who haven't seen it yet, Ye and Sneako absolutely destroyed Piers Morgan in a recent interview on Piers Uncensored by exposing him for being a raging bigot, controlled by puppet masters. Oh, but they didn't stop there. They went ahead and dragged Piers Morgan by his non-existent edges for only being biased against and trying to censor people he doesn't like. Or should I say, people his puppet masters don't like? Guys, it turns out that Piers Morgan is not the unbiased shining light of journalism he claims to be. He has a price, and he dances to the tunes of the people pulling his strings behind the scenes. And now that Ye is onto him, Piers will have to find another grift if he wants to remain relevant. This is super messy, guys, so let's get into it.
If you want to be Netanyahu light on TV,
but given you want to, given you want to
be Dave Portnoy with the suit,
yes, fine.
Then sure. If you want to do ad hominem attacks, then why invite someone on your show?
Piers Morgan has made himself the poster boy for free speech for the last few decades, but he finally met his match in the free speech final boss, Kanye. And Kanye did not waste any time putting Piers in his place. See, as far as Ye is concerned, there's no world where he takes Piers Morgan seriously because for all his posturing as the defender of the hard, uncensored truths, Piers is really just controlled by a bunch of puppet masters. And Kanye, he has made it his mission to expose Piers Morgan and all the corrupt people calling the shots behind the scenes. It all started with Piers' explosive interview with Ye and Sneako for his show Uncensored. The interview started okay, but then everything went south pretty quickly. First, Piers decided to address Ye as Ye West, which he has clearly and repeatedly said he doesn't want to be addressed as.
Ye West is rarely out of the headlines at the moment. It's fair to say the headlines are equally rarely positive. The rapper, producer, and fashion designer is currently working on a new album, several new tracks.
A simple Google search would show you that Ye is just Ye now. And while a lot of fans and people online might still refer to him as Kanye or Kanye West, the same way everyone still calls ex-Twitter and brother Love Diddy, it doesn't make sense for a respectable journalist to refuse to do his due diligence. I mean, if you're going to interview someone for your show that is broadcast to millions of people, the least you can do is get the person's name right. You didn't waste any time calling Piers out on it. He straight up told him to cut it out and only refer to him as Ye, or the interview is over.
Yeah, we haven't spoken for a while. How are you?
I'm doing good. I don't use the term West, you know, the whole drop the slave name idea.
Okay, so we just call you Ye, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But it didn't stop there. You called Piers out again after Piers said you had 32 million followers on X instead of 33 million. Piers didn't accept the correction and just moved on though. He started going back and forth with Ye until Ye stormed out of the interview.
People in media act like you haven't played my songs at your weddings or graduations or at funerals or when your child was born. You know, you take somebody that's living like a Lennon, a Michael Jackson, and you just take all this time to just, like that nuance right there, it's idiotic. It just shows the hate that you put out for people that put love. There's so much love in the art that I put out.
With all due respect,
so many,
Ye, what are you talking about? I haven't said anything.
What are you talking about? It's 30. Okay, now you're not taking accountability or responsibility.
Literally, you said
you know,
you implied I haven't played your music. Of course I played your music.
No, sir. This is what you get for now. We can circle back when you can count.
Okay. Where's he gone, Sneako?
Yeah, that's it for Ye. But it's nice to meet you, Piers.
Now, you might be thinking, that's so petty. Why would he walk out of an interview just because someone called him Kanye and said he had 1 million fewer followers than he actually does? But here's what a lot of people don't understand. This interview was never meant to be an objective ground for Ye to come and tell his side of the story, and Piers was never trying to hear him out. It was a trap right from the beginning, and lucky for Ye, he saw right through it.
As any respect, or frankly, any marbles. I'm not a shrink. But if you're so delusional or fragile, you don't expect a journalist to ask you questions about your publicly stated love of Hitler, you should probably talk to somebody other than me.
So, those little things don't seem so little anymore. It was clear that Piers said those things on purpose to get Ye riled up so that Ye would then say something potentially controversial, and Piers would display it for his fans to get those clicks he loves so much. In summary, Ye saw the engagement baiting and didn't fall for it. What made it even more obvious that Piers Morgan was trying to set Ye up was that he completely lost it when Ye walked out of the interview. I guess he never really considered the fact that Ye would just not fall into his trap. Boy, was he fuming about it. He called Ye a little sniveling coward and said Ye didn't have the balls to answer the questions he wanted to ask him. Questions that were obviously trying to make Ye look like a fool.
Come on, you know what you were doing.
What do you think I'm doing?
I think you were trying to patronize very intentionally by getting those two things, under his skin. Maybe it could have been about past interviews or because of what happened yesterday. But, I mean, this information is not that difficult to get right.
Piers also started trying to bait Sneako into making certain comments that would turn the fans against him. Piers was in that interview like, I'm going to get my engagement bait content one way or another. And honestly, it was very funny to watch.
Oh, don't be so pathetic, Sneako. Honestly, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get good content which will promote you, Sneako. And I'm just curious how you, Sneako, deal with the fact that you are so openly associating yourself
You asked that question
with
a few
somebody
times,
who
and
seems
I
to
can ask you the
worship
same thing.
Adolf Hitler and is pro the Nazis. Do you feel comfortable about that?
No, we worship God.
No, he worships Adolf Hitler.
I'm here promoting this. We could talk about how
He
pathetic it
worships
is that
Adolf Hitler.
That you were essentially working for Israel up until a couple months ago and
Really?
promoting
When was I
things
working for Israel?
like genocide and not pushing back.
When was I working for Israel?
If it's pathetic to make films behind the scenes of one of the greatest living artists, probably the greatest living artist.
Well, he certainly was.
You point the finger
He
at you and
certainly
say
was
it's pathetic as well.
he was a great artist. Unfortunately, he's become a rampant anti-Semite who adores Adolf Hitler, embraces Nazism, uses swastika slogans.
I'm pretty sure he says he loves
to
everyone.
sell his
I'm not
merchandise,
gonna speak
and
for
has a
him,
new
but
record out called Heil Hitler. So forgive me if I don't currently
the
see
song is
him
not. I mean,
as one of the
everything you're
world's
saying
great
in this question
artists.
is incorrect.
Yeah, but I don't see
Everything
him.
you're saying in this question is incorrect.
Sorry?
The song isn't out. The song isn't out for one. And two, he says he loves everyone. He says he loves Jews. He says he loves Hitler. He says he loves everybody. But
Really? So when he says, let me ask you, given you're the one sitting there, he said Jews were better as slaves. You have to put your Jews in their place and make them into your slaves. You then said make your Jews work for you, but watch them as close as you can, whip the Jews. You comfortable with that, Sneako?
I think I find it funny. That's not something that I would do personally. I don't whip
anybody. You think
anybody.
it's funny, do you? Whipping Jews?
Slavery.
Using Jews as slaves? You think that's funny?
I think the context of that is funny, yeah.
But of course, Sneako also didn't fall for it. Piers called him an Andrew Tate light, and Sneako destroyed him by calling him Netanyahu light and Dave Portnoy with a suit. And then Sneako finished him off by calling out that Piers invites people to his show just to set them up for drags. Oh, by the way, he didn't stick around to hear the rest of Piers Morgan's little rant.
You are free to stand up and walk away like a little sniveling
Well, you can ask
coward
questions.
too.
If you have questions for me, then I'll feel free to answer
Here's my
those.
question for you. Why is your mate Ye?
Is this whole thing going to be interrupting, or is this whole thing just going to be interrupting? Do you want me to speak at all?
You're sounding like Andrew Tate light, like his annoying little younger brother we never knew about. Okay, doesn't work with me. Okay, you set this thing up. It's obviously some kind of elaborate prank.
Okay, your team asked me to do this. If you want to be Netanyahu light on TV,
but given you want to make,
if you want to be Dave Portnoy with a suit,
that's fine.
Then sure. If you want to do ad hominem attacks, then why invite someone to your show? I set this up because your team asked me to do it. I did everything that I could. If I knew that this would, I'm not here wasting your time. You're angry at me for setting up an interview that you wanted. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Here's
if you
my
want
question.
to keep doing insults, there's no point in me being here.
Why did Ye stand up like a sniveling little coward and walk away before I could ask him difficult questions?
For the third time, Piers, I don't know if you have a hearing problem, but I'm not going to answer questions on another man's behalf. But
really?
Thank you for
Even though you set up the interview with him?
Another time, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, tell him from me he's a sniveling little coward. And he's an anti-Semite and a Hitler worshipper. That's what I would have asked him if he'd had the balls to sit there and take the questions.
After the interview went viral, people started dragging Piers Morgan for this embarrassing spectacle of an interview because it couldn't be more obvious that Piers wasn't trying to get to the truth. In fact, he was this close to begging Ye and Sneako to just give him crumbs of rage bait content so he could incite his fans to pile on both of them while he sits on his high horse feeling self-righteous. But here's the twist. More and more people are finally seeing the truth behind Piers Morgan's carefully structured facade, and folks are realizing he is just one tool in a much bigger propaganda machine. The backlash from the Kanye interview was swift, pushing internet detectives into action. And when they opened the can of worms, what they found wasn't pretty. For example, this interview Piers did with Mehdi Hasan recently resurfaced, and it's a perfect example of just how deep Piers is in the propaganda machine. Hasan confronted Piers with some of the tweets he made about the Israel-Palestine conflict, where he shared some news that wasn't true at all.
Do you regret, Piers, a year later, having used your very big platforms, YouTube, Twitter, to spread that atrocity propaganda, to repeat the Israeli line uncritically, saying, and I quote, 40 babies being killed, some of them being beheaded?
Well, I never said, as people have tried to claim, that 40 babies got beheaded, right? We do know that some babies were killed.
One.
We do know a baby was kidnapped. Well, I mean, what I find fascinating about this, when people start going on their Hamas defense.
That's not a Hamas defense. We're journalists. We believe in facts, right?
I know you do.
Now, granted, Piers wasn't the only one who shared this fake news. A lot of people did at the time, but the news was later debunked as propaganda created to demonize the people of Palestine. Any other journalist would have deleted the fake news and apologized for sharing it in the first place without verifying how true it is. But you know what Piers Morgan, the king of uncensored truths, did? He doubled down. Even after Piers himself admitted that the news he spread was disinformation, he still refused to take accountability for his actions. Instead, he kept deflecting, changing the subject, and even trying to make it look like Hasan was the one at fault. If he was really after the truth, why wouldn't he just admit he was wrong, take responsibility for his actions, and move on?
I'm asking you about 40 babies being killed, some of them being beheaded. Do you regret saying that as a journalist? You correct things when you're wrong.
As you know, well, I've already said this on my show. So had you done your research in the capable way you say you do, you would know that I've already said, yeah, it turned out that 40 babies were not killed.
That's weird because I've just checked this morning and all your tweets are still up saying that 40 babies were killed. So if you've corrected it.
I've said it on my show.
But your tweet, you have how many million followers do you have? I know you love talking about your followers.
A lot more than you.
Yeah, how many?
I think it's 8.8 million.
So 8.8 million, we can still see multiple
But they can
examples.
watch my show.
Which show?
My Piers Morgan Uncensored.
You say you got it wrong and you apologise for getting it wrong. Have you apologised?
Let me be clear.
I'm just trying to get to the
facts.
facts.
Let me be clear.
Okay.
Let me answer. Right? There was a report that said 40 babies had been beheaded.
Yeah.
People believed it in the moment. It turned out not to be true. I never actually said 40 babies had been beheaded, contrary to the avalanche of people who on a daily...
You passed it off as fact, Piers. Come on.
I didn't.
October 10th, talking to Joan Collins. This new revelation of 40 babies being killed, some of them being beheaded. How can any human being do that to a baby?
Right.
There's nothing in there that expresses any doubt.
Right, I didn't say 40 babies got beheaded.
You said 40 babies killed, some of them being beheaded. That's false.
Right.
None of them were beheaded.
Right, okay.
And you said it as fact.
Okay, but why are you defending Hamas?
That's your response. I'm not defending Hamas. I just started with Hamas did war crimes
babies killed?
on October the 2nd. Horrific, and they should all go to prison.
The way he doubled down in that interview almost felt like he was afraid to say the wrong thing because he was dancing to a tune other people were playing, and any little misstep could result in him being taken out. So much for being independent and unbiased. Oh, but it gets even worse. Remember how Piers Morgan hounded Meghan Markle for years, calling her everything but a child of God? I mean, the man has dozens of tweets on his page calling Meghan a scheming, devious opportunist, a shameful failure, and a ruthless social climbing actress. It would turn out that Piers is actually doing all this because he's allegedly on the payroll of some powerful people loyal to the crown. So it doesn't matter how many times Meghan tells her story, he will always have nothing but hate for her because the people who sign his paychecks tell him to do so. I mean, people thought he would at least back off for a while after Meghan's explosive interview with Oprah, where she revealed that being in the royal family caused her to have so much anxiety that she considered ending it all multiple times. But what did he do? He outrightly called her a liar, saying, "I wouldn't believe it if she read me a weather report." Mind you, this is someone who prides himself on having honest conversations about mental health. But suddenly, mental health doesn't matter, just because it's about someone he's being paid to hate. His comments sparked mass outrage on social media, leading to him being asked to resign from Good Morning Britain. It wasn't until after he left, almost in tears, that people found out that Piers actually used to be friends with Meghan and once shared a drink with her. This led to speculations that his one-sided beef with Meghan was probably because she rejected his advances. So he took up this crusade against her, masking his personal hate as something noble. But what's even creepier about Piers Morgan is that he will do almost anything for clicks. So, last year, Piers did an interview with Fiona Harvey, the woman who the character of Martha, the stalker in Netflix's Baby Reindeer, is allegedly based on. Now, for those who have watched the show, you know how crazy Martha the stalker was in that show. So, when people found out that it was actually based on a real-life person, they didn't waste any time fishing her out. And you can imagine the amount of hate, vitriol, and just invasion of privacy she must have been facing at the time. Whether you think she's a bad person or not, we can all agree that she must have been in a vulnerable position at the time. Oh, but this didn't matter to Piers Morgan. He set the tone by calling her a psycho stalker in a tweet promoting the pre-recorded interview. The first thing she said in the interview was that she wasn't exactly happy coming forward, but she had to do it because she was being hounded, stalked, and threatened.
Why have you decided to go public?
The internet sleuths tracked me down and hounded me and gave me death threats, so it wasn't really a choice. I was forced into this situation.
You would think Piers Morgan would at least take care with the questions he asks and recognize that this might be someone who actually needs help or at least deserves privacy. But no, Piers builds on the vitriol she has been receiving online and exposes her to even more hate with the kinds of questions he asks.
He says the whole thing started because he felt sorry for you, and that's why he befriended you.
Your staff said that to me in the waiting room. This is a lot of nonsense. I've got lots of friends.
What did you talk to him about?
It was just a holy arms banter. It was
like what? What kind of?
What you're going to do with your life, or career stuff. Sort of. And I thought he was a stand-up show.
Of course, he got the clicks and reactions he was hoping for. Some people even said the interview was like a bonus episode of the show. So basically, Piers used a potentially vulnerable woman to get his views and likes, and still didn't do the one thing he promised he would do for her: give her a fair chance to tell her story. And don't even get me started on how Piers Morgan invited Jaguar Wright on his show to make these outrageous claims about Jay-Z and Beyonce. She claimed they had something to do with Aaliyah's death, they were involved with Diddy's crimes, and that they were involved in prostitution and trafficking.
I would never take a picture with the devil. Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange. He was selected to be the demon that he is, to keep the culture in line so the industry could continue to rape it for all of its precious jewels. We have too many lost. The list of lost is ridiculous, and everyone knows Diddy was selected for this job. He's the Judas. I've seen what they do. The ritualistic behaviors, the drugging, putting girls in the suitcases, dumping them in alleyways. It's horrifying. And it's all done under the protection of, this is gonna be paid off. There's another NDA. This is gonna be, it's terrible. People keep looking at him like he's the Sputnik that came out of nowhere. This is someone who was designed to be what he is. We gotta stop making ditties. And if we're gonna do that, then we gotta go back. We gotta go back to even further, the mentors of these people. Because Diddy was taught how to do what he does systematically, and Clive Davis has been his greatest teacher.
It's like Piers Morgan thought he was DJ Vlad or real-life street stars for a minute. How do you call yourself a truth teller and then bring someone to spread all sorts of outright disgusting lies and statements that he didn't bother to fact-check? In fact, this interview confirmed to many people that Piers Morgan truly has puppet masters pulling the strings, because it lasted only 24 hours before he was forced to take it down. A lot of people felt like Jay-Z reached out to Piers Morgan's real bosses behind the scenes and made it clear that there would be hell to pay if they didn't reel him in, and Piers didn't take long to delete the video and apologize like a good boy.
And that Wright's claims were totally false and have no basis in fact.
And that's the thing about platforms. The reality of the modern world is that pretty much everyone has a platform as long as they have something to say that other people want to hear. Well, Jaguar Wright unexpectedly made several serious allegations about Jay-Z and Beyonce during that interview. As I said in the moment, they were not present to respond or defend themselves, but now they have.
He continued, "We had lawyers contact us to say that those claims were totally false and have no basis in fact, and we've therefore complied with the legal request to cut them from the original interview." Morgan concluded his message with a direct apology.
Editing interviews is not something we do lightly at a show called Uncensored. But, like the proverbial cries of fire in a crowded theatre, there are legal limits on us too. And we apologise to Jay-Z and Beyonce.
We could go on and on, but it's pretty clear that Piers Morgan is the opposite of everything he claims to be. As for Kanye, he clapped back in another video where he talked about his work and shamed Piers Morgan for trying to silence him. He didn't mention Piers directly, but he made it clear that people like him were being used as censorship tools by people who don't want the truth to come out.
So I had this vision of performing Hitler at the Grammys wearing a swastika t-shirt and crying because we broke down all the walls of censorship to break down all of the woke and the Me Too and the cancel and all of these ideas between all of the tweets and the songs and the music, and really you know, all the threats, the threat of death, the non-threats on money and cutting off the finances, and all that happened, that we went through this war to like really fight for our freedom as artists, because you can't be artists if you can't tell the truth. You're no longer an artist anymore. You're now a commodity. You're a slave.
And baby Piers Morgan was salty as hell. He even went on Twitter and replied to a post quoting a part of the interview where Yes said, "You're not gonna take inches of my D, bro."
Now look right now. You're not gonna take inches off my D, bro. Like, how many followers do I have?
Piers replied, "From what I hear, that would be mathematically impossible. It's exactly the kind of thing you would hear in a Stan Twitter beef or something, not from someone who calls himself a professional journalist. It's just sad to see him go out like this." But what are your thoughts on this drama? Do you think Kanye can take down Piers Morgan? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to check out this next juicy video.